Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Key. My name is Trevolta, Minak, and this presentation reviews the article, A Corporate Social Responsibility Audit Within a Quality Management Framework. The authors of this article are Peter Koch, Ton van der Weyl, Richard McKenna, and Ellen Brown. This article was first published in the Journal of Business Ethics in 2001. Okay, the purpose of this article is to develop a corporate social responsibility or CSR audit within the same self-assessment logic used by quality and excellence models. The authors argue that traditional quality models were not sufficiently developed in their treatment of ethics and social responsibility. Their proposed audit is intended to help organizations assess where they currently stand, identify their weaknesses, and plan for improvements. The article is mainly conceptual rather than empirical. The authors examine the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award and the European Quality Award and assess how strongly these models address three issues: the organization's mission, public debate with stakeholders, and ethical codes. They then develop a CSR audit instrument containing 14 responsibility aspects, covering both the external and internal environment. Okay, so in this article, the main argument is that corporate social responsibility should not be treated simply as legal compliance or as a way of improving profits. The authors they distinguish three positions. The first one is minimum legal compliance. The second is enlightened self-interest, where social responsibility is used partly because it can support long-term business performance. And the third is proactive change, where the organization uses its resources to improve society, even when there is no direct benefit to the firm or the organization itself. The authors adopt this third position. The authors they adopt this third position as their definition of corporate social responsibility. Yes. Okay. So just to recap, we covered the three positions, right? Minimum legal compliance, enlightened self-interest, and proactive change. So moving forward, a major contribution of the article is something called the audit instrument. So the 14 areas include community relations, consumer relations, supplier relations, the natural environment, physical environment, working conditions, diversity, organizational structure, communication and transparency, industrial relations, education and training, and ethics awareness. The instrument assesses each area using 4 levels: the ad hoc policy, the standard policy, planned policy, and reviewed and evaluated policy. The 4th level is particularly important in this article. At this level, social responsibility is integrated into organizational policy, supported by broad stakeholder participation, monitored through measures, and regularly reviewed. The organization is not simply reacting to problems, instead they are continuously learning and improving its social impact. This is the CSR, or corporate social responsibility audit instrument. So, in my critical evaluation, the article is about 3 major strengths. Firstly, it provides a structured framework that makes a broad concept like corporate social responsibility. This article makes this concept more accessible and relatable to audit and assurance. Secondly, it connects ethics and social responsibility with quality management rather than treating them as separate activities. And third, it recognizes stakeholders beyond shareholders can also be affected by organizational decisions. However, this article has several limitations. The audit is primarily conceptual rather than it's not presented as an empirical study. It's not backed up by statistics or surveys, information that would support this article. Also, this framework was also developed in 2001. So some issues that were discussed in here, such as digital privacy, modern supply chain risks, and some of these issues discussed here may be outdated, in today's day and age. Finally, the model also relies heavily on self-assessment. As we all know, this may create bias, if management evaluates its own social responsibility without sufficient independent evidence. Okay, so when it comes to its relevance to audit and assurance, I believe the article remains useful. Although it was published in 2001, I still think it's relevant because it shows that responsible auditing can involve more than checking whether the rules have been followed. An auditor needs to consider evidence, stakeholders, governance, ethical behavior, and whether policies are actually implemented. This connects strongly with the purpose of this unit, because auditors they have to uphold governance, legal, ethical, and societal responsibilities. Basically, corporate social responsibility also applies to auditors. So I still believe that this article is relevant to today. Also, moving forward to application to Papua New Guinea. In a PNG context or in a Papua New Guinea context, the framework could be useful for organizations assessing areas such as working conditions, community relationships, supplier practices, environmental responsibilities, transparency, that's a big one, training and ethics awareness. For example, a company could use the 4 levels to determine whether its community or employee policies are merely reactive, legally required, planned, or genuinely reviewed, and if it needs to be improved. However, the framework should be adapted to local cultural, legal and stakeholder conditions, rather than applied mechanically. It has to be tailored to the PNG context, basically. Yeah. All right. We've finally reached the end of this article review. So, in my conclusion, overall, it is my belief that the article is useful as a foundation for auditing theory and professional practice, because it turns corporate social responsibility into something that can be systematically assessed and improved. And I believe that its greatest insight is that social responsibility should move from an ad hoc, or basically in response to something, to an ongoing cycle of policy implementation, measurement, and stakeholder discussion and review. So corporate social responsibility should not be reactive. It should be ongoing. That is my final conclusion, and thank you for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great day.